Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest is Jenna. She was with me on Uplift Conversations with Visionaries. She's so amazing that I had to bring her back for the Mind of Business Success podcast. This is going to be a great conversation. Jenna is a pretty solid entrepreneur, and we're going to get into some of the energetics of entrepreneurship and being a visionary leader. Welcome to the show, Jenna.
Yay, thanks so much for having me. I'm pumped to be here again with you to collaborate.
So when we collaborate, we get into the technical side of business and we get into the energetic side of business. So that is going to be um, that's going to be our theme, I believe, for today as well. Let's kick things off by sharing with the audience a little bit about your business, which I think is a perfect way to set the platform for what we're going to get into.
Yeah, absolutely. In a nutshell, my business, my brand is called Soul Meets Strategy. So literally the energetics meets the practical of leadership and business. And my work is very much in those realms. I call myself a leadership coach and a business strategist working with entrepreneurs of really all types, all levels, but to help ultimately get more money into the hands of conscious business owners is my mission because the ripple of impact that happens from that is infinite, really, at the end of the day. And I feel there are so many amazing entrepreneurs out there doing really good work in the world. And so helping them become who they came here to be while also helping them on how they're going to scale their business is what my work is in the world.
When someone is stepping into this whole vast realm of business, there are so many, it's so dynamic. There's so many different facets to it. The cliche, when I first started using Chat GPT, anytime that you'd put something in there, it'd be like the dynamic world of business. But it's true, it really is because it's so complex. And for a lot of heart-centered, especially service providers, but
Yeah.
certainly product-based business owners as well, we have a tendency to be really, really flippin' good at our thing. But then when it comes to all of the other facets of business, it can get a little sloppy. And you can't rely just on meditating your way to business success. And you also can't just hustle your way to business success. There is this interesting dynamic going on. I want to talk about that from your perspective because you're in the trenches working with your clients, and I'm sure you're seeing a lot of that imbalance that frequently needs to be addressed and corrected.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is probably the biggest thing for business owners is finding our balance, our harmony in these things. Because most people are operating from one side of the spectrum or the other. Either people are in kind of overdrive, hustle, even if we don't want to call it hustle, it's like that always needing to feel switched on kind of energy. And like there's just never quite enough that we can get done in a day. And our to-do list kind of runs our life. Like so many people are operating from that place and really brick by brick building a business that is actually more like a prison and is probably even more restrictive in many ways than perhaps when they were in, say, corporate or another line of work. On the other side of the spectrum, there's also definitely business owners where I feel they've kind of rebelled. I know that was me initially. I've kind of lived on both sides of the spectrum at times where when I quit my corporate job, I was like, screw schedules and structure and systems and to-do lists. I'm just going to intuitively flow with all of it, which don't get me wrong, I do intuitively flow a lot in my business, but it was too far on the other side of the spectrum that I didn't really feel safe in my business. It felt very chaotic. It felt really unpredictable. And so that didn't really work either, especially if we're looking at both when it comes to a scalable and sustainable business, because those two things go hand in hand to me. Like you can't have a scalable business and not have it be sustainable. Like you could scale it to a point, but it's not truly scalable if you're going to burn out or it's all going to come crumbling down. And a business could be sustainable without being scalable, but that's going to come with its own limitations as well in terms of cash flow and impact also that we can be creating. So I feel like that to me is the ultimate goal for most business owners is have something that is scalable where there's no limit, but also have it be sustainable both from an energetic perspective for us and our nervous system, our lives, our lifestyle, and from a business delivery standpoint as well.
Let's talk a little bit about how you identify some of those blind spots, those areas that are out of alignment, they're a drain, they're a drag. I know you do a lot of audits. I want to go there for a moment. And the word audit oftentimes evokes, a negative feeling.
Yeah, totally.
However, I've found, and I even have a mini program within my academy called the Energy Audit for Business Growth. And it's important that we take the time to see where we've got blocks, where we've got holes, where we need to make some important changes. Let's talk about that for a few moments, and the type of auditing that you see as beneficial.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you hit on a key thing there that a lot of the times we have associations with different words and we make them mean a certain thing or we have a certain emotional attachment or perception of something. For me personally, the way I think of audits, whether we have somebody else like me doing one for, say, in our business, or even if we're doing our own, to me, it simply means we're just getting curious and we're intentionally, as business owners, taking a hot minute to work on the business and not just in the business. Most of us are running around, we're doing the marketing, we're making the content, we're doing the deliverables for clients, but a lot of the time it's still that very reactive state or things actually could be fine. They can be pretty good, maybe comfortable even, but when we are bumping up against wanting more, whether that's more cash flow or more people in our programs and things, usually there are some things that are going on. And so to me, auditing literally means taking a look, kind of taking stock of things and noticing like where are our opportunities, where are the gaps that maybe we haven't stopped to actually see because we are so just busy in the day-to-day action of our business. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, definitely. And I'd love for you to key in on some of those areas that you often see
Yeah.
need attention.
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. So I'll run you through a couple of the ones that I look at. And for anyone listening, you can also be self-auditing yourself in these areas too. And that might mean just literally going through and reflecting in your mind about these things, or maybe getting a pen to paper and actually reflecting on these things, or maybe sitting down with a business bestie, a colleague, your assistant, whatever that looks like to kind of take stock of the business. And there's not a right amount of time that you need to do this. And oftentimes we're going to be auditing, I find maybe one area, maybe you're getting ready to create something new. So you're auditing a few key areas. Maybe your schedule is out of balance. So you're auditing that. And sometimes you might kind of go through and do an entire audit, so to speak, of your business. I find doing that at least once a year is a great intentional practice to do, whether it's at the end of a year or the start of a year. Personally, I like to do a full kind of spectrum audit of my own business at least once a quarter. I find we shift, we evolve so much that it helps us stay congruent with what our vision, what our goals really are. So, some of the key areas that I find are the best and most priority ones to look at. Number one is our marketing. That's such a huge piece of our business. And a lot of the time, let's say we have been putting out the content, we're doing the things, but maybe we don't have as many people coming in to our inbox as we want or jumping into our offers, or maybe that's not the problem at all, but maybe it's not the right people. So many business owners I speak to have evolved who they actually want to work with, but that isn't being represented in their marketing. So they're actually still working with kind of outdated clients who aren't necessarily bad people, but maybe they want to work with somebody who's a little bit further along on their journey or higher level or different emotional intelligence or maybe a completely different type of person or archetype. So I find that's one of the key things that we should be auditing ourselves on is number one, who do I actually want to work with from this point forward? Because when we're marketing in our business, we're basically going to create a preview for ourselves of who we're going to be working with in the days, weeks, months to come. So if we're still speaking to clients who we don't really want to work with anymore, we're creating our own gaps in our business. So thinking about who we actually want to work with for this point forward is huge. And then auditing, are we actually speaking to that person? Is our messaging clear? Is it aligned with our brand, our vision, and where we really want to go? And so this might look like taking a look at your socials and your recent posts through the lens of your ideal client and who you want to work with, but also looking at things like maybe some of your recent emails that you've sent, maybe your website, and even just assessing overall, like, do you have the lead flow happening in your business that you would like to see? For some people, it's like, no, not at all. Others, maybe it's comfortable, but they'd like to see more. And for some, this isn't the issue at all, or maybe they have a different type of problem that they have lots of leads coming in, but maybe they don't have the right places to put them. So they all kind of interconnect. So we also want to look at things like our sales funnels, so to speak. Like, do we have simple but structured processes in place, first and foremost? And secondly, are they working that can help take people on a client journey, taking them from awareness into action? That's another big thing that I see with a lot of business owners is we default to certain types of content and things. Like I'll look and I'll be doing audits for people and they're like, yeah, I don't feel like my audience is ever growing. And then I look at their content, let's say, and they have lots of really good content that is designed to maybe nurture and convert, but there's no content or pathways, things that are happening to bring new people into our world. And so simple tweaks like that can make the big difference. Does that make sense on the more marketing sales side of things of some of the
Yeah,
things
a
we would look for?
great gold.
Yes. Okay, good. So I think that's like one of the big things is start with marketing and sales because that's usually where our brain wants to go anyway, in our business. And what you can even do if you haven't done it in a while, if you're listening to this, is map out your client journey, which doesn't need to be some fancy linear kind of spreadsheet or map or something, but even just pen to paper, ask yourself, where are the entry points for people into my world? Maybe this is having a referral network set up. Maybe this is some of your content that you're putting out designed to grow your audience. Maybe this is you going on podcasts and things like this, like exposure opportunities for new people. And you might find you have a gap. Maybe you don't have much of that going on in your business. So you're going to know what your action step is going to be. You'll want to look at how are you nurturing people? Because for some business owners, that is definitely a big gap. And they're focusing a lot on, say, going viral and going on podcasts and getting themselves out there. But when you actually go, say, look at their social media, it's kind of lacking depth. There isn't content that's showing how they're an authority, how they're going to help you, and actually making people offer aware. So we want to ask ourselves, are we nurturing people effectively? What are some of the ways that you currently are doing it? Or if you haven't been, what are some of the ways you want to be? And then looking more from the conversion place, like how are you actually taking people into your offers? And is it clean? That's another thing too. Like a lot of us have outdated stuff. We got broken application links, or maybe the process just doesn't suit you anymore. Maybe you've been having people book a free call with you, but you actually don't want to do that anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you want to move to paid consults or an application form. But this is why we audit in our business to make sure we actually have things in place, but also are those things working? Are they still feeling good? So those are the main marketing things. One of the other big areas to me is schedule. If we want to step into the next level of our business, our schedule is such a huge part, and not just the schedule like in our Google Calendar or whatever on our phone, but really how we're managing our time. I remember back in the day, I was in this mastermind with a coach, and like many of us, I was in this energy of like, how do I get my next client? How do I hit the next level in my business? How do I make more money? And basically, his answer to me was, Jenna, when you value your time more, you're going to make more money. And at the time, I kind of scoffed. I was like, I totally value my time. Reality was people could book in my calendar literally at midnight if they wanted to, which, I mean, for energetics, that was some major scarcity going on. But I needed to clean things up. And sometimes I think when we hear, we need to value ourselves more, our mind goes to our pricing, which can certainly be a part of it. And I'm sure lots of you listening to this could probably give yourself a raise your rates. But for me, the biggest thing I noticed was my schedule. I had way too much access to me, and it wasn't really congruent with my bigger vision. And even just in my day-to-day schedule, there wasn't really CEO time happening to do things like these audits on my own business or to connect into my vision. My time was very much just in the weeds of day-to-day business stuff, which for I think a lot of us is basically marketing, sales stuff and client delivery kind of stuff. So that was a big piece, is where are we actually spending our time? Like, is it on high value activities? And do we have a work-life balance now? And also, is that what we're building and creating in our schedule as well? Or are we just overloading ourselves, which then can ripple back into the sales and the lead flow and the energetics? Does that all make sense?
So you covered a lot, but it's all
Yeah,
worth sitting down. And this is probably going to be one of those episodes where people are going to want to re-listen. Sit
yeah,
down and write out these key areas and then just start to break it down, and comes down to real self-honesty and being
yeah.
willing to look at what you're doing, what's working, what's not working, and what it is that you really want. Now, I want to speak to this one piece, and this is definitely coming from the mindset side of things, because you mentioned it briefly, some of your own scarcity, and that is not necessarily just financial scarcity. That could be time scarcity. That could be a fear of turning away clients. It could be a fear of hurting people's feelings by not, addressing certain things or working with certain people or whatever the case may be. But oftentimes it's those things that we don't want to look at, the pain areas that
Mm-hmm.
are always associated with disempowering beliefs. And so this exercise is also going to bring up an opportunity for awareness of what are some of your old beliefs? What are some of the things that you've been unwilling to deal with within yourself?
Yeah.
So if that involves making changes in your business, you'll feel resistance. And that's a great opportunity for some deep inner work.
100%. Yeah. Well, and I think this is why so many of us do avoid looking at these things because we're kind of scared or uncomfortable with what might be under the floorboards if we get in there. So it's easier to just disassociate and just keep forging forward because it is very confronting for us to look at these things. At least that's how we can perceive it to be. I find the truth of it when we actually do is it actually can provide us a lot more safety and I think excitement too in our business. So many business owners I speak to are low key bored in their business. Like they don't actually feel as connected to things like their vision anymore and their mission because they are just going through the motions and they kind of lose their spark. And so even though change can be so uncomfortable to look at these things, what I always say, because people will be like, oh, well, it must be easy because you just feel really confident about this, or oh, I'm not that confident about it. So we avoid things. But what creates confidence to me is moments of courage, like micro moments, sometimes big moments of courage, but a lot of micro moments of courage, which to me is basically us looking at things that make us uncomfortable or doing things that feel uncomfortable, like say sitting down and having a CEO meeting and auditing our business. Um, and so when we do that, the more moments of courage we have, the more it compounds. And really, that is what creates the confidence. So courage compacts, it stacks up, it creates the confidence that we have. And then before you know it, looking at these types of things, it's just like second nature to do it, but I feel like we have to be willing to guide ourselves and take self-responsibility, even when it's uncomfortable, to start normalizing it. And then it does become a lot easier. And maybe we need things like outside accountability and stuff in order to set ourselves up for success to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And even just honoring in ourselves, it's human nature. It's completely normal to have resistance, but resistance doesn't necessarily mean it's bad or wrong or anything in that realm. It literally just is us noticing, hey, this is a little bit uncomfortable. Why is it uncomfortable? Oh, well, it's out of my norm and my daily routine. Okay, well, let's get curious about that. And just being willing to play with the resistance, I find is huge rather than identify or shut down with the resistance.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very effective releasing process because when we
Yeah,
take things so seriously, we keep them stuck.
yeah,
This is
absolutely.
probably the best time for me to ask how our listeners can connect with you because now they're probably thinking, okay, I would love some help. And that's one of the ways that you help is with the auditing process, amongst others. So, can you share with our listeners how they can connect with you and go deeper?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for allowing me to share, Alicia. I love making new connections. So if you're listening, feel free to come and connect with me on socials. I hang out mostly on Instagram, which is my brand, Soul Meets Strategy, or Facebook. You can also go to my website, soulmeetstrategy.com, which will have all the links to all the things. And two of the main things I'll illuminate that you'll find on there. Number one is a free resource, which is the Visionary Leadership Blueprint. I've pulled this from one of my top programs, and this is a really good foundation